Thank you, Bertola. Meanwhile, I was provided with a microphone, so it's easier for you to understand me. I'm very grateful to be here in Sweden. It's my second visit to Gothenburg, and it's a pleasure to be here. And hopefully, this topic I will talk about is interesting for you. The title of my presentation is From Consumers to Citizens, and I want to talk about a new culture of encouragement, trust, and collaboration. So to give you a short overview, first of all, it would be interesting for me who in the audience has difficulty to understand English, so that we need a translation of certain terms. Okay, so everybody is following. Wonderful. Okay, I will start with, I have three parts of my presentation. The first part is about the challenges we are detecting, we have to cope with. The second part is about solutions, and our primary aim is to promote self-organization within society, and I will talk more about what we mean with self-organization. And then I will close with a summary and put all the things together. I'm, as Bertola already said, I'm working for the Büro für Zukunftsfragen. You could translate it with Office for Future-related Issues or Future Questions. This is quite an interesting unit. We are part of the state government of Vorarlberg. This is in the most western part of Austria. You see, here we are bordering to Switzerland, southern Germany. It's a small province. You see lots of mountains, only relatively small space where we can use for housing and economy. But it's a very touristy region, lots of attraction. It's the first part of the Alps for the Germans, so it's very popular to go skiing there or hiking. And Vorarlberg is 2,600 square kilometers big, and we have 370,000 inhabitants. So it's quite a small country, but we have the legal status of a state. This means we have a governor, we have a government, a parliament, and we have 96 municipalities with self-administration, local self-administration. This means they have mayors and can take care of their affairs. And our office is directly subordinated to the state governor. This makes it for us easier to work cross-departmental. And we work on three issues. We promote civil engagement, social capital, and sustainable development. We are altogether 8 people. Yeah, that's the unit I'm working for. And what are the challenges we are facing? I bet you can name most of them. But currently, our most important challenge we are facing is that we are running out of money. And if you're running out of money, one of the main reasons is that you live beyond your means. And that's what I would say is the case for the whole civilization. It may not be true for Sweden, but I'm just talking to you about the situation in Austria. And the interesting thing is that this is nothing new. We know this since 40 years, since the Club of Rome report was published. And the interesting thing is that not much changed since then. 40 years, the whole economy, the whole society is still going into the same direction. And it's very difficult how to change the direction of such a big ocean liner. And recently we had a new image. And this is also a wonderful metaphor for the time we're living in, because the glamour of the big ocean liner has been demolished. And it seems that this is a metaphor for the situation we're in, that this way seems to get to its limits. And the next interesting thing is that politics have huge problems to cope with this situation. This is actually, it's a real picture of a climate conference, and it shows the situation between despair and being asleep. And I would like to describe the situation we're in as it's a political dilemma. Because I know what I'm talking about. I'm working for the governor of our region. If you make sustainable politics, you will not be elected again. And if you don't do it, your policy is not sustainable. So you're trapped in a dilemma. And it's an interesting question, because why did we get into such an interesting situation where governments worldwide seem overwhelmed by these challenges and don't seem to find the right answers? Because that's actually what we expect from a government, to have a long-term vision to help us get out of such difficult situations. And I briefly tried to explain my point of view, why I think we got trapped into this dilemma. And the main reason, I think, is that citizens are treated like customers in the political system. So here you can see a short overview of the political system: politics, economy, experts, citizenry. And actually, the citizens are not needed in the system. It's enough for them to be part of the election process every 4 or 5 years, but then their function is fulfilled. Then they are just consumers of the political system. And this is running very smoothly and very well. So they provide solutions, they have work, and the only thing, it doesn't fit with the needs of the citizenry. The political field is also a field of competition, so nobody expects political parties to cooperate for the common good, because they have to compete with each other in the election processes, and the outcome of this is obvious. But we don't only have a political problem, we also have a problem with our administration. I'm part of the administration, and the administration is organized in silos. So you have certain departments for certain areas, economy, spatial planning, and so on. The pity is that the problems don't take care of this order. The problems are cross-departmental, and we are not fit in the administration to cope with such cross-departmental problems. And this makes the system very vulnerable, and especially certain stakeholders are very successful in lobbying. So it's known to most people that many laws are written by stakeholders themselves, and even the parliament doesn't have much influence anymore. So some small groups with a big impact have huge influence on the political system, while other groups don't have a stake. And the challenge we are facing is that the whole society is drifting apart. And we have much more diversity than we used to have, and it's so difficult to cope with this situation for the political system. So the question is, what is the common ground we have in a society of diversity? What is what we agree in? And we are facing an enormous amount of challenges, and how can we remain, how can we ensure our capacity to find the right solutions? And as you can imagine from the title of this presentation, I want to argue that we need a transition from consumers, from a culture of consumers, treating citizens as consumers, towards a culture of true citizenship. And I don't just mean the legal citizens. I mean everybody who takes part in the political system. And I found an interesting survey that recently was done in Europe, 2010. And here you can see the amount of people who engage themselves in civil society, volunteering. And here you can see countries with a high ratio of people who engage themselves voluntarily. Luckily, Sweden and Austria are among the top countries. Then the high countries, Germany, Denmark, Finland. Average is France, Latvia, Estonia. And then relatively low, Belgium, Ireland, Poland, Romania, Spain, and very low, Bulgaria, Greece, Italy. And I think it's not a coincidence that those countries with very poor engagement in their society are also those countries which are really struck very hard by the financial crisis and euro crisis. So what you can read out of such a chart is that we need active, engaged and collaborative citizens. That should be a political aim. And I think this is agreed upon in most countries. The big question is how can we win the people for being engaged, being active, taking over responsibility? This is the $1 million question, actually. And I am working in this field since 20 years. Since 20 years, I try to promote active citizenship. And what I can say is that the usual approach through laws and regulations to make pleas and calls, to organize campaigns and give grants and awards, this usual approach is not very sufficient. We worked in this way for several years. We did different campaigns, and when we evaluated them, we found out that they are very, very limited. Even if you have the best campaign, after, I would say, 2 or 3 years, nobody can listen anymore to those slogans. So we did a deeper analysis because there is an approach that's called appreciative inquiry, and those people say, even if in the worst company, something is working. And you can focus on what is not working, or you can try to find out what is working and explore that deeper. And that's what we did with our campaigns. And one example that stuck us was the example of Oswald Hagen. And that's something I would like you to remember of this presentation. This guy, Oswald Hagen, he is working for Wolford. That's a famous company that's producing stockings for women, men also. And he had a relatively unimportant position. At that time, 1,400 people were working for Wolford, and we did a huge campaign to promote bicycle use. And he showed up and said he wants to promote bicycle use in his company, and he had really high set targets, and we didn't really take him serious because we couldn't believe that he would really manage to be very successful. But interestingly, after 2 or 3 years, it turned out that he was really very successful. He had a lot of brilliant ideas. The time is too short to get deeper into that, but he managed to with creativity, to find people who supported him and to raise money to finance his activities. And he really changed the whole company. Within 2 or 3 years, the big part of the company really every day came to work with bicycle, with public transport or by foot. And what we learned out of this example of Oswald Hagen is that you don't have to change the whole system. We learned that the important point is to find the acupuncture points. This means that you need to find the Oswald Hagens in the associations, in the communities, in the companies, And they are the change makers. You don't have to convince 1,400 people in a company. You just have to detect the Oswald Hagens. This was a very important learning for us. But another question came up, and we were asking ourselves, what is actually driving people like Oswald Hagen? Because it turned out that he did not do what we told him to do. He did something completely different. He had completely new ideas, new approaches, and he didn't care at all what we told him to do. So we discovered a second very, very important thing. And if you don't remember anything beside Oswald Hagen, you should remember the term self-organization. Because this was, for us, this was something new. Self-organization, I have the metaphor of a roundabout to explain it, but sometimes it's better to explain something with the opposite. The opposite of self-organization is, for example, a traffic light. The traffic light tells you what to do. It's red or orange or green, and no matter if there are cars around, if it's red, you have to stop. And this is quite inefficient, and that's the reason why more and more roundabouts are built all over the world. And the roundabout is interesting because nobody tells you what to do. You decide it yourself. And this is much more efficient because when nobody is around, you drive in. The paradox of roundabouts is that self-organization needs to be organized. So self-organization does not happen by itself, even the name is self-organization, but you need a structure, you need a roundabout, because if you have a traditional crossing, it's much more difficult to self-organize. So the next question that arose was, what could all this mean for our work? How can we promote self-organization within society? What are the roundabouts we have to build or provide? And the first decision we made was that we stopped talking about sustainable development. This doesn't mean that sustainability is not important, but we discovered nobody understands what it's all about. What people understand is the term quality of life. So no matter who you are, you want to have quality of life, you want to improve your quality of life. And so we started a new type of campaign. We still did campaigns. And the campaign was called Life Worth Living. So what makes your life worth living? That's the big question we raised. And what we changed is we stopped providing solutions. We didn't tell people save energy, recycle, use public transport. We stopped with delivering solutions, but we started asking questions. What can you do to promote quality of life in your community, in your town, in your company? And an interesting coincidence was at the same time a mayor showed up in our office. This is this guy, Peter Nussbaumer, from a very small rural community. It's called Langeneck. Small, I mean 1,000 inhabitants. That's actually nothing. And you may think, what can 1,000 people in a small rural community do? That's, if you want to start a business there, the business professionals will tell you that's too small amount of people. You should better forget it. So Peter was a very, very engaged mayor. He had lots of great ideas, but the pity was the people did not appreciate it very much. Or they did appreciate it, but they didn't support him. And he came to us and asked us, what can I do? And we said, we don't know either. But maybe you are the problem. And he was astonished. And we said, Peter, maybe it's because you do so much, people think they don't have to do anything. They are in the consumer role, not in the citizen role. And this made him to reflect upon the situation, and he gave us a try with this Life Worth Living campaign. It was actually the first community we tried it out. And what we did was, after talking to the mayor, the mayor invited 15 randomly selected people, and this is an important point, randomly selected people that came together, and we talked with them about life quality, and we said nobody cares about the life quality in Langeneck. Nobody. Not the state government or the federal government or Brussels. So if you want to do something, you have to do it yourself. And if you do something, we will support you, no matter what you take care about. It can be any issue that is important for you. So they said, yes, this sounds interesting. And what is the next step? And we said, each one of you should invite 3 other people. So 45 came together. We asked the same question, and now they had the task. And this is also a very critical point. We did not focus on deficits. We did not focus what was missing in the community. But we asked the question, what are those people who really make a difference in your community? Those who promote life quality. And they were really astonished. They had a list of 200 people within a community of 1,000 who were important for the life quality. And this can be a very simple function, like a woman taking care of the flowers on the market. And then they decided to make a big party. And meanwhile, everybody in Langeneck was talking about life quality, and this is how everything started. And it's very interesting because this is already happened, I would say, 15 years ago, and now it's much easier to reflect what has happened since. We only supported them for 1 year, then we left them, and they are still working. And what they have achieved is now visible on this slide. They have a new grocery shop in, how do you call it, passive house quality. In other towns, the grocery shops closed. So they have a new one. A physician came, a dentist, a masseur, a barber shop. They still have a post office run by disabled people. The pub was not closed down as in other towns, but it was enlarged to a hotel. The dairy was not closed as in other communities, but it was renovated, and so on. And this small community won lots of prizes. And recently they received the European Town Renewal Award. That's the most prestigious award that you can get for town renewal initiatives. With the same philosophy, we supported a biosphere reserve in Great Walser Valley, a very deprived region in our country. And exactly the same thing happened there. You don't have to read it, but this shows the awards they received for their work in that biosphere reserve, and they also got the European Town Renewal Award. So meanwhile, government was quite impressed about self-organization, and the governor had a new issue. He wanted to promote child-friendliness in our state, and he asked us to work out a strategy paper. And usually what are you doing if you get such a task? You put together a group of experts, and they produce a strategy paper, and then the real problem starts because nobody wants to realize those strategies. So we thought, when citizens are so capable of finding good solutions, why don't we invite them to write a paper? And that's what we did. We set up a citizen jury. We had 2,000 people randomly selected that were invited to work on such a proposal. And out of those 2,000, 75 agreed to take 4 days out without payment, just voluntary work to work a proposal for an action program. And then we discovered, oh, it's about child friendliness, maybe we should include children also. So we organized future conferences. And because we were a bit scared, when you work for the government, you cannot fail. So we said maybe we should also invite experts, and we organized an open space with 60 experts. And afterwards we discovered this was a great idea to have 3 different approaches, because now we could compare the outcome. And what turned out is that what was delivered by children and adults was at least as high quality as what came from the experts, but with the important difference, for the government it's much more easier to realize those ideas and measures that are from the citizenry. So the citizens presented their advice to the government, and then the government agreed to report every year what was done with the ideas from the citizens, and out of this a new program emerged that's called Children into the Middle. So this is really interesting. The only thing, the difficulty of this citizens jury is it's too expensive. And therefore we try to find out an approach which is cheaper and faster and delivers the same quality. And that's how we discovered the wisdom councils. And how much time is left? For 1 minute. 1 minute? Okay. The tricky thing with the wisdom council is you work just with a dozen of people, 12 to 16 people, randomly selected, not 4 days, but 1.5 days on Friday afternoon and Saturday. And there are different versions. The important thing is they have to agree on a unanimous statement. So 12 different people come together the first time. They don't know each other, and they come to a statement that is presented to the public and then publicly discussed. And if I had time, I would go deeper into that. And, unfortunately, the time is over. But the results were really stunning. Meanwhile, we had over 30, we had almost 30 such wisdom councils. And meanwhile, we have an agreement of all political parties that they want to use these instruments to find better solutions and to change the way how political issues are discussed. So this is a huge breakthrough, and maybe I just go over. It's just 20 slides I have to skip over. What the basic point I want to say is that we have to shift from a top-down approach where people pretend to know what is right. And this doesn't work anymore. We have to shift to a complete different way of finding solutions for our societal problems. And this means to work in diversity, to bring as more diverse the people are who come together in such groups, the better the results are. In contrast to this system, the more diverse the society gets, the more difficult it is for the government to make decisions. So that was in brief my presentation, and hope that it was useful for you. Thank you.